Welcome, everyone. This is David Morgan of themorganreport.com, and today I'm interviewing Mark O'Byrne. Mark was the founder of GoldCore, and full disclosure, I have an account with GoldCore. And he basically branched off not all that long ago and started Terra Coins, but I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. Well, maybe we should just do it now. Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll get right in. You have a long association with the precious metals, and I remember our first physical meeting together so many years ago, and then when I finally made it to Ireland, you were the host with the most, man. I really enjoyed going through that part of Ireland with you and seeing the pubs and some of the history and all that we did together. So go ahead and give us a bit of an introduction. Some of course, will know you.
Yeah, you're very good, David. Well, thank you for having me on, and it's an absolute pleasure to get to know you over the years. And you've been like a mentor to me, and I've learned a huge amount from you over the years. I think it was one of your videos many years ago. It was a fascinating video. It was looking at the movie, the Rollover movie. And you did a sort of an analysis of that, which was very, very interesting and very captivating. And when the bank manager tells his wife to go down to the bank, take all their savings out and put it into gold and silver. And that's a brilliant movie with Chris Christopherson. If people haven't seen it, I suggest they watch it because it's still relevant today, But anyway, that was my first introduction to you, a very compelling introduction. And then I went on your website and I learned a huge amount from you over the years. So thank you for all you've been doing for all of us and for the community, And it was a pleasure having you in Dublin as well. Yeah, we had a good time. We didn't go too crazy on the beer. I think we had one or two. We were very civilized, but I remember it was a good night out. So yeah, basically, my background is I studied history in University College Dublin and Greek and Roman civilization. So I was always interested in the genesis of things and the origin of things, and many things as a young man didn't make sense to me at all, and that's why I found history interesting, because I was trying to really understand how are things so messed up, and how have they seemed to always been quite messed up, So yeah, and as I went along, I sort of realized that a lot of it is related to the money, and to follow the money. Because when I was in what you guys call high school, we call secondary school, it was always like, there was this war here, and there was this battle here, and this war in this year, and you had to remember what year all these battles were and all these wars and who won the wars. And it was like, but there's no analysis of the context. Like, why were there all these wars? What was happening? And obviously it's about power and it's about money. It's very simple. So I realized you have to start follow the money, as they say. They're very important 3 words: follow the money. So I started following the money, and I started going down rabbit holes at quite a young age. And I realized a lot of the conventional narratives were not that true in the historical narratives, and history is frequently, nearly always written by the victors, So, and I got very interested in the rise of empires and the fall of empires, and then I saw how gold always basically had a role as money throughout history, and it protected people throughout history, And there's a lot of bad things associated with gold and negative things, but there's a huge amount of positive things as well, So yeah, I went into I was thinking about lecturing, teaching, and then my dad brought me into his business, which was actually a recruitment agency, employment agency, and I suppose I learned how to run a business and to manage people. But it never excited me, let's put it that way. So I started doing a bit of travel, and I traveled around the world and actually learned a huge amount by going to India and Southeast Asia and South America and meeting other people and other cultures. And in some ways I learned more from those travels than I did from the textbooks in the university, So anyway, long story short, I basically, I was looking, around the tech bubble, 2000, 2001 and September 11th. I had some money, basically Irish property went crazy, obviously we had a big bubble. So I sold Irish property and I had some money there, and I was looking to invest it. And I was looking to buy gold and silver coins, and I couldn't buy it anywhere in Ireland. I was shocked. I had to buy it in the US, and I bought from a company called usagold.com. You probably remember a wonderful man called Michael Kosaris. And his son Jonathan now runs USA Gold. So I was buying gold coins from them in Colorado, of all places, and they were shipping them to me in Ireland. And And I sort of realized this is very interesting that no one's doing this in Ireland. And people were literally laughing at me, literally, like smart people, and people who were working in stocks and brokers, and they were saying, gold, that's barbaric relic from the past. Why would you be doing that? Sure, it's $250 per ounce, and it's only going to go lower. Sure, Gordon Brown is selling his gold and gold.
Yeah, right.
So it was amazing just how negative everybody was, and I knew from reading about investments and from a contrarian perspective, when everybody's negative like that, it means it's a huge opportunity. So I set up a brokerage in 2003. It was actually called Gold and Silver Investments Limited. That was the name because I knew silver was fundamentally undervalued relative to gold. So I always felt silver was going to be a big part of it. It was called Gold and Silver Investments Limited. And basically about a year later, I brought in my business partner, Stephen Flood, and myself and Stephen basically grew the business over the years. We rebranded to GoldCore 2009. We brought in David Russell. I watched your excellent interview with David there recently, and he's a good guy who's running GoldCore now. And basically, the three of us really grew that business, particularly during the financial crisis, and it was a great business. And yeah, I left in 2020 to spend time with family, to spend time with my dad, who wasn't well. And I was actually thinking about doing more well-being, and I'm very passionate about, I suppose, breath work and, sort of these sort of energy modalities. So I was looking at that, but I mean, there's no money in it. And I had different people coming to me saying, you're great at precious metals. Why? You should be writing about precious metals. You should be telling people about precious metals and talking about it and giving talks. So I started people getting me to talk about it again. And then I said, I don't really want to sell Krugerrands or American Eagles from the US Mint anymore, But long story short, I realized it's actually Irish Americans, but also Irish people in the company over here saying, why aren't there Irish gold coins? There's like Austrian gold and silver coins. There's Australian, Canadian, American, British. Why aren't there Irish gold coins, And I never really had a straight answer, So anyway, I started thinking about it, and I said, well, why don't we? So I said, I'm going to do it. So we've done it now, and for the first time ever, we have Irish bullion, gold and silver bullion that's 4.9 pure, and indeed 3.9 pure being minted in the US as well. And yes, it's the first time, I've never been done before. The Central Bank of Ireland have done a few funny collector's coins, So this is the first time. So I'm very excited by it. And because there's a massive Irish, you have Welsh ancestry. There's a massive Irish, Welsh, and Scottish diaspora in the US, And I'm very much targeting that niche within the global precious metals market, So yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and get the biggest question, that why. Why are gold and silver important in 2025?
Yeah, I think it's funny. You wouldn't know it from the media coverage because it's like it's a taboo, particularly here in Ireland and much of Europe. I think maybe slightly less of a taboo in the US, but it rarely gets any media coverage. It's been quite shocking in recent days. Gold hit all-time record highs against the euro, or to put it more succinctly, if you look at the euro price of gold, it's just gone down, since the foundation euro in 1999. So last Thursday, gold hit record highs in euro terms. And there wasn't one article in the Irish media, and I didn't see anything in European media either, So it's people aren't aware, It's crazy, and that was not the case in 2008, 9, 10, 11. It was getting much more coverage, So it's in my opinion, it's actually more important, more relevant today than it has been in the modern era, given the scale of risks that's in the world, and yet it's more of a taboo, So, and I think obviously we've got very significant risk in the world, and I don't want to be going on about it because I think most people are aware of the risks. I want to focus more on the solutions, but there's massive macroeconomic risk. I think we're on the verge of very sharp recessions in most major economies and in the global economy. There's huge geopolitical risk, obviously the war in Ukraine, the wars in the Middle East. It's very, very unstable, the whole world, The systemic risk, the system itself is unstable given the levels of debt in the world. We're barely talking about the debt anymore, DEBT, because I think we just got so sick of talking about it. And I think people have almost come to the conclusion that well, there must be not there's no really if nothing's happened, but the risk is still there. It hasn't gone away, you know, and the debt is just going through the roof. I think the credit card debt now has gone over a trillion in 1.1 trillion, I think it is in the US, and it's increasing exponentially, you know, and then finally is the most probably the monetary risk, because all these other risks create the risk to the fiat currencies, as we know. And you know, I was talking to you before, and we used to be warning about the paper money, you know, and so that's what can happen to paper money. So that's Zimbabwe, $100 trillion. And Zimbabwe, people go, well, that's Africa. Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. It was the most wealthy economy and nation in Africa, and they went bankrupt from excess creation of paper money. But I actually think today, given what we have going on in the digital world and the increase in the so-called money supply, the increase in the fiat currency supply, just by creating digits on a screen, I mean, we're getting to a stage now where we have infinite currency. We saw that just the other day with Trump's memecoin became worth 1 billion or 2 billion in a few days, was created out of nothing, you know. And a memecoin isn't, it's absolutely nothing. There's no value, there's no intrinsic value, there's no earnings. It's simply almost a branding exercise, you know. So that's just one example of how what they call I don't want to be crude, but an SH1T coin or a fart coin can be worth billions overnight, you know. So this is creating massive increases in the values of all sorts of things. And yet gold, and particularly silver, are still very, very undervalued, you know. But the bottom line is it can lead to very significant inflation. And we are seeing that, obviously, in terms of, you know, the value of things that matter to us, which is, you know, food, energy are the two primary things, accommodation, you know, housing, mortgages, rents. You know, the cost of living there's a crisis. At least that's been acknowledged by the mainstream media. But I think that cost of living crisis is worse than people realize, and people are, you know, the middle classes are suffering out there, and working classes, if we want to get into definitions of classes. But people who are on lower to middle incomes are struggling, you know, and I think we're only, you know, unfortunately, I think that's only going to get worse, you know. So I mean, they're the problems. So the solutions are going back to, you know, what looking to the wisdom of our ancestors, you know, and there's nothing new under the sun. And I think gold and silver, physical bullion, is going to be a key part of what actually protects people, families, communities in the coming months and years. And I think things of intrinsic value, so going back to the land, growing our own food, organic food. One of the biggest solutions to most problems in the world is actually growing organic food, you know, and in terms of, because we have a huge health challenge as well, you know. So I think, yeah, land, water, gold, silver, I think these are the things that people need to focus on and start diversifying into if they haven't done so already.
Let me interject there. Let's go back a little bit to the crypto space. Do you think that the crypto space has taken away from the gold and silver investment community? And if so, do you think it's been mildly significant, very significant, a major factor? What's your thoughts?
I think it was mildly significant in the early days, and I think it's become more and more significant in recent months. And I think it has, I've no doubt. I mean, you can see it in the data, you can see it in the conversations in Twitter. All the younger generation is being sucked into speculating on mem coins and SH1T coins and the Bitcoin itself, which is obviously, you know, that there are merits to Bitcoin vis-a-vis these other cryptocurrencies, obviously. But yeah, a lot of the younger generation and men, particularly in their, you know, mid-late 20s and 30s and 40s, they would have been buying both gold and particularly silver. I remember in GoldCore, we always had a younger demographic of a buyer of silver who wanted to make a return, but they haven't got the return on silver in the last 10, 20 years. Not particularly. I mean, it's done roughly 6.5% per annum, which isn't bad compound return, you know. But they want bigger returns. They haven't got returns in silver, so they're now going to Bitcoin and Ripple and all these cryptocurrencies, you know. So I think, yeah, and I think in the last year that has accelerated. And I really do think, I mean, it's amazing. Gold's at record highs. Silver's close to breaking out. But when I talk to the dealers across America, dealers across the EU, there's just huge inventories there, and they're under pressure, you know, and the premiums are tight, and it's quite a difficult business, which is incredible when you think the amount of risk in the world, and as a gold price is at near record nominal highs, you know. I think gold is only about 1.2% below its all-time record high or nominal high from about, what was it, two months ago or so? Yeah, I think it was October 31st, actually. I think it was Halloween. So, and yet there's no excitement, there's no buzz. The retail investor is nowhere near this, you know. There's no speculative, you know, there's no coverage in the media even that gold is pretty much touching record highs, you know. So I mean that is it's worrying in some ways, but I do genuinely think it is very bullish from a contrarian perspective, you know. Um,
Right.
but I think, you know, we'll need to see record highs. We'll need to see silver break out before, and possibly a sharp correction in the cryptocurrencies before we see a wave of monies flow from that sector into gold and silver. But I think it will happen. I think that the smarter money in that sector will be taking profits, and they will be diversifying those processes into gold and silver because there's a lot of education been done. I mean, I was never anti-Bitcoin. I was actually quite pro-Bitcoin as a libertarian. I saw some of the qualities of gold, you know, but as time has gone by, I think unfortunately it's become more and more speculative, and I think it has become a plaything of. I think it's manipulated, and I think it's been used as a pump and dump asset, you know, by very speculative people who
Well,
are.
let me interject something there. I know
Yeah.
you can't answer this question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, just to spur some thinking, because I can't
Mm,
figure it out, which doesn't mean that you can. But
mm.
why would a young investor buy a Trump coin or a fart coin, knowing that really there's no value there, but yet they're almost compelled to do it? Whereas, you know, there's silver has an essential need. I mean, you can't run a modern society without it. It's in everything electronic. So I have no idea. To me, the only thing that comes to my mind is follow the leader. You know, and it's like follow the leader over the cliff. I mean, what's at the bottom of the cliff? Well, hopefully an ocean, so you don't die. But um, it has no meaning, and yet it catches a wave. It's like drinking the poison. I just don't get it. Maybe I should Kool-Aid. But can you have any rhyme or reason? I mean, to me, this is the kind of behavior you see at the end of the great inflations. That at
Yeah.
the end, people grasp for anything that isn't a dollar,
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that isn't the currency that's failing. But the dollar really isn't failing in such a rapid degree that you know the bankers are running away from it. I mean, they're just continue to quietly accumulate more gold. Anyway, let me turn over to you. What's your thoughts on why would someone do something as naive as buy these meme coins when they have other options available?
Well, I think it's a combination of desperation and greed and also follow the leader, as you said, you know, and that's a toxic combination. It's the FOMO, the fear of missing out, you know, because there's so much very, very sophisticated marketing is going on YouTube and on TikTok in particular, and you've all these influencers. Including even Elon Musk is an example of this, you know,
Yeah.
at the very highest levels. You have the chap Michael Saylor, these guys, and then there's an army of they're marketeers basically, and they've jumped on the crypto bandwagon, and they're basically pumping it, and they're basically saying it's digital gold, and they're talking about all the qualities of gold in terms of, and saying it's a safe haven, and they're telling these young people that there's no risk, and there's huge risk, you know. So you know, and obviously Bitcoin's very different. We have to be careful not to conflate you know, the different cryptocurrencies. There's a few of them that have quite interesting properties, but most of them are, you know, just highly speculative and very dangerous. So, but the young people are desperate, you know. The vista in front of them is, you know, even people who have degrees and have, you know, BAs and masters and PhDs. The job landscape, their job prospects are very, very low. So, I think that's contributing to this, and they can't afford to buy a small little, you know, one bedroom apartment, studio apartment. They can't get the deposits together for that because the cost of living is so high, so they can't save. So it's a form, I think it's a desperation more so, but a little bit of greed, FOMO. And it's as you alluded to, it's that herd behavior. There's a mass mania going on because it's just they're being bombarded on TikTok and YouTube, being told that you are going to, this is how you will, you'll make success of your life, and it's the extraordinary pop delusions and the madness of crowds, that it is this group thought, and I'm hearing this now from people I'm meeting, particularly in the last few days, and they're saying all my friends are buying now, and so there is a mass delusion going on about these cryptos, and it's not being warned of. And the mainstream media has a role to warn of these things, and it's not being analyzed. There's no analysis anymore of a lot of these things. Because the media is just, I suppose it's long derogated its duty as reporting the facts and then analyzing the facts, from a non-partisan perspective, but you would think the media are so anti-Trump that they would, and I'm not particularly pro-Trump. I don't have much time for politicians, any of them really. I always thought Ron Paul was the one guy who was a true libertarian who I had a lot of time for, and hopefully Trump will look to Ron Paul and Rand Paul and some of these libertarian people, and he will actually bring them into positions of power. But that's not looking good either, But anyway, we'll suspend judgment, and we shall know him by his fruits. So he's doing some good things already, some bad things, but I think sorry, I'm straying into that, but. Long story short, yeah, it's FOMO, it's greed, but it's the group behavior which has been informed by this massive, digital juggernaut, of the social media and the Twitter as well. I mean, Twitter is a very, very pro crypto space. Most social media is very pro crypto, and it's actually quite anti gold silver. There's no, on Twitter, you don't get, what's the word? God, there's a term for those images that they have on Twitter. So go. I'll have to Google it again. I'll go back onto Twitter. There's like an image that you can put on with your tweet. And when you look for that for Bitcoin or cryptos, you'll get really cool and interesting and sort of sexy images, GIFs, and there's another term for it as well. But when you look for that for gold, they're always really quite negative images for gold. Like you'd have sort of a greedy dragon who's hoarding gold, or you'll have some evil leprechaun, or you'll have some Austin Powers, I like gold. It's almost trivializing it or taking a piss, giving it a negative spin, whereas the spin towards the cryptos is hugely positive, So I think the people in our space, in the gold industry, the World Gold Council, the LBMA, but more so, the people who are actually people like yourself, myself, people who do analysis and talk about. I think we do need to cover it more and look at it more, but also the bullion dealers themselves and the industry themselves need to do a better job of saying, why gold and silver are better, and the reason they're better is because it is gold and silver are true safe havens, which have been proven as safe havens throughout history. They're money. They're the ultimate forms of money, as seen throughout modern history and ancient history. And that's because they're rare, they're tangible, they're portable, divisible, durable, and fungible. And Bitcoin has some of those properties, but it doesn't have all of them, and it's the power is in all those properties coming together is what makes gold and silver true safe havens, And I think the portable one is quite an interesting one in the world today because, there's a lot of risk in the world, and it's great to have, a few coins and bars, and in the worst case scenario, God forbid, most of us will never have to leave our family homes or, or the jurisdiction we live in or the country we live in, but we're seeing a lot of crazy things in the world. And some people do have to, we've seen it in the fires in LA as an example, a very tragic example just in the last few days, and if those people had a few gold coins, gold bars, whether it be in their house or in a safety deposit box or in a vault somewhere, they could head off and they could start again, But if they had all their money in their property, that's not insured, they're in big trouble, you know. So you know that portability thing is more important, and people don't talk about the portability aspect of gold. So it's very, very important, you know, the physical aspect, the tangible aspect, and the portable aspect. Um, and people say to me, "Oh, Bitcoin has that as well." I'm like, "Well, on your iPhone, so you've got that Bitcoin on your iPhone, but there's risk to your iPhone because your iPhone can be hacked, your iPhone can be robbed, there can be issues with your software, your iPhone, the iPhone itself can be taken off you or can be robbed." Or it can break down and not work, or maybe you're in a position whereby you can't charge your iPhone, then you don't have liquidity. So
Yeah, well, the worst case scenario really is loss of power. You look at what happened with, Hurricane Helene and, all these other weather events that have taken place or a cyber
yeah,
attack or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And if you want
yeah,
the money of last resort, I mean, a lot of people consider, physical cash to be the money of last resort. In many, many instances, it is, whether you're in Cyprus or you're in Washington, D.C. However, you can't use the ATM if the power's down. So, there's that aspect as well. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about, how to analyze the Bitcoin situation that very few seem to do. My friend Steve St. Angelo, who writes the SRS Rocker Report, has done a
mm,
pretty good deep dive, which encouraged me to, I wouldn't say do a deeper dive, but at least swim alongside of him. And what's interesting is that the two major Bitcoin miners, United States, Marathon and Riot, mint a Bitcoin for about $100,000. So, being in the gold business, I mean, in many aspects, I mean, I write a financial newsletter with the macro picture, politics, but, focus primarily on real resources, real tangible wealth. The adage that if you can't grow it, you got to mine it. So it either comes it's all based on the land. It's either what's in the land or under the land, or what you do with the land, grow crops or build on top of the land. I mean, it's all land based when you really think about it. So
yeah,
coming
yeah,
back, Bitcoin, if I'm a gold mine and I'm mining my gold at 2,700 the ounce, and all I can sell it in the market is 2,700 the ounce, I've got a very good business. So if I'm mining Bitcoin at 100,000 and I'm selling at 100,000, I don't really have much of a business. And what's been happening is that these major Bitcoin miners have been diluting the crap out of their shareholders. They've just been issuing more and more stock. Well, it's the fiat game all over again. When you hold a public company, you are allowed to issue more shares. It's called dilution, just like when you dilute the money supply. When there's more, uh, British pounds being pumped up or US dollars, then you are diluting the money supply so each unit has less value. And that's what's happening in the shares of these Bitcoin miners. And what's happening is the management of these companies are lining their pockets, and the shareholders are taking it because they're not making a profit. And
yeah,
sooner or later, I think someone's going to be smart enough to look at the SEC filings and find out that these companies are not profitable. And if you look at the downside of it from a human perspective, there is a very unknown YouTube channel called Proof of Waste rather than Proof of Work. I think there's like less than 200 people as subscribers. But this young woman, and she leans left, and I lean in the center. I really hate politics, as anyone knows that knows me well. But regardless, I don't care what her political leanings are. I care about, what the truth is. And she points out that some of these, what they call data centers, which are really Bitcoin miners, is that the noise level is so high and it goes 24/7. Once they turn these computers on, people are actually losing their hearing. There's a case purportedly, I'll say purportedly, of a girl having epilepsy because of this. And the property values go down, down, down because no one wants to live in an area where all you hear is this loud hum 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On top of that, what most people don't know about these Bitcoin miners is they have one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to guess a number, basically work the algorithm and guess. And when they guess the right number, they earn a Bitcoin. But those computers only last about 2.5 years, and they have to be replaced. The pitiful thing about it, Mark, is that those computers can't do anything else. They're useless. Now, if you could use them as a a desktop frame, for learning, having Word and email and all the stuff that we're all used to on our computers, well, then, that wouldn't upset me. You'd give them away to communities, you'd give them to the Goodwill, you'd wholesale them out for a small
Can be
fee,
recycled, yeah,
you'd use them. But they basically throw them away and have to buy a newer version of a Bitcoin miner. That's all they do. So there's a lot that I've learned after diving in through Steve's lead that makes me more questioning the whole Bitcoin situation and how much more energy it keeps taking. You listen to Michael Saylor, oh, it's like flaring off, an oil field. Well, they have to flare it off, or otherwise they can have an explosion. There's a reason for it. And yeah, it is a waste of energy. And some of them actually use that heat, but I'm going down the rabbit hole too far. The point is that the amount of Bitcoin energy usage is about ready to triple by 2028. And this is a lot. So I looked at it after Steve's first kind of got me going on it. And what I discovered was, as anyone can think about, it's really an exponential function. When you have the Bitcoin every 4 years or so, it takes the same amount of energy to get 1/2 the amount of Bitcoin it took the previous time frame, the previous usually 4 years. Well, that's a 2. It's actually 2 to the 29th power. Well, if you work out 2 to the 29th power, you're somewhere around 1 billion. Do you really think that a Bitcoin is worth 1 billion? I don't. But it's certainly become kind of front and center. I mean, you talked about Trump and his coin and his wife's coin and becoming successes and failures literally overnight in both directions. But what happens when people wake up to the Bitcoin reality? And what is it really good for? I mean, it's an Excel file on the web that's held by millions of people. And it's immutable and it's all that. And I get what it is, but I don't think I'd pay that kind of money for an Excel file that anyone can access. So having said all that, it looks as if it goes back to what we said about these other SH number 1 T coins that I'm not putting in the same classification. It is the granddaddy of all of them. But the reality is, if there's so much emphasis on this market, and you realize that the market for Bitcoin is about an order of magnitude less than the gold market. So the gold market's about 10 times the market cap of Bitcoin. And as we both know, Mark, being, in the places we are with gold is about 1% of the financial system. And Bitcoin's 1/10 that amount. And yet I'm going to make, crypto or Bitcoin or I'm going to make, the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. So we're focusing on 1/10 of 1% of the financial market, and that's going to save us. I mean, have I lost my mind or have they lost their mind? Straighten me out here, Mark. I'm confused.
They have lost their minds. There's no doubt about it. And I think when the history of these times are written, I think that will clearly be seen. I think what's going on is, I think it's a desperate attempt to maintain the dollar as the reserve currency of the world, because they successfully shut down a lot of the avenues of being able to buy Bitcoin with other fiat currencies. And now the major exchanges, you actually have to have dollars to buy Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrencies. So that's why the likes of BlackRock, one of the most corrupt institutional funds in the world, you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. These are guys who are pushing these narratives. And, without getting personal, Larry Fink, only yesterday, I think it was, Larry Fink came out with a target for Bitcoin, and he's pumping and dumping it. Like, these guys are going out. Larry Fink, the top guy the top guy in Bitcoin, the top guy in BlackRock is basically saying that Bitcoin's going to go to $700,000, So that's his target, And why would a man like that, like who's the head of this fund, going out into the media, putting price targets on these things? I mean, it's actually unheard of, for a man of his status and his power. to be giving price predictions. That's a form of financial advice that he is giving, and it's very, very dangerous. And if any financial professional did that and said, I believe that the S&P 500 is going to go to 50,000 or whatever prediction it is, they'd be laughed at, But he gets away with it. It's outrageous, So, and it's become so corrupt, the whole thing. And so sorry, but you're quite. I've gone off a bit of a tangent there myself, but I think that's an important wider context. So your question was, oh yeah, just how crazy the whole thing is. Well, you're right. It doesn't make any sense at all. And Michael Saylor is rolled out as if he's some sort of guru, And the stuff he comes out with is nonsense. Like, honestly, to tell the people that we're going to sell all the gold and gold will become worthless. I mean, the Chinese and the Indians and most of the Middle Eastern nations, central bank and the Singaporean central bank and Western central banks, the European central banks, they're laughing at this guy. Like, it's actually completely non-fact based to what's actually happening in the world. And no one just points out simple facts to him. If you or me got into a debate with him on a stage, you'd wipe the floor with him. Not that I want to wipe the floor with him, but you just say, hang on a second, these are the facts, But you're not allowed to give these facts, because people like him are rolled out. Because I actually do think there's an agenda to actually suppress gold and silver. Sorry, I don't think it. I know it. There's been a war on gold and silver for decades. And Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA have done a great job exposing it, and dozens and dozens of other people have exposed this. There's been books written about it. So this is just another installment, shall we say, or another, and it's an evolution of the war. There's almost an attack from an unholy alliance of the technocracy, of the technocrats and the technocratic elites, and Wall Street have got together, and they're targeting gold and silver, and no one's talking about. And another example is the front page of the Financial Times used to quote, at the bottom of the page, you would see gold, silver, platinum, oil, Brent, oil, NYMEX. They would be your commodities. Then you would have your stock market indices, you would have your bond markets, and you would have euro, dollar, and cable, sterling dollar. They've actually taken the silver price out. Reuters have taken the silver price out of their main financial pages, like market prices, but they're putting Bitcoin in, So you have to ask questions, and people, it's not paranoid. It sort of stands to reason, that they have been under attack. So why do we not see this as an evolution of that, So I'm pretty confident that's what's going on. And what you said there about Bitcoin is completely unsustainable in so many ways. The energy. I follow Steve over the years. He does great work, Steve San Angelo, and his big thing is EROI and energy return on investment. And it just doesn't make sense. And what you're saying there in terms of the environmental damage, the amount of energy, amount of electricity that's used for it, and then I wasn't aware of the thing that they're just used for solely one function, and then they can't be used. But hopefully, the metals that are in it can be recycled, and I might see to buy some of those computers, recycle them, and put them into some of these beautiful gold and silver coins, because that's where they should end up,
Right. So let's go there. I told you I wouldn't go more than half an hour, and we've gone quite a bit longer than that. So we could go on all forever, you and I. So why don't we go ahead and cut there and go to a little bit of self-promotion. Tell us about, the Irish coins. You're the first. You did it, why you did it, and what they're looking at, and how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so why I did it was because, well, this conversation, gold and silver are safe havens. They're money, they're stores of value. And people really just need to think about what a store of value is, and it has value. It always has value, particularly in extremists, when there's sort of extreme events or there's an extreme increase in the currency supply. Economics is very simple, but it's complicated by all these PhDs and by Wall Street. So the more supply of something, the less value it has. And today we have a near infinite supply of digital dollars and digital cryptos, and they're trying to convert everything into digital. They want to basically put a stable coin on every single natural asset on this planet, the land, the water, the trees, and they want to trade it all and they want to monetize it all. And it's very, very dangerous, you know. So any real value is in nature, and Wall Street realizes that, and they're trying to monopolize it and monetize it. So, but anyway, so I'm getting back into so why gold and silver? So we've covered why gold and silver. They are safe haven forms of money. And I was basically selling big Swiss gold bars, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think in the world today, people should be aiming to have, in the same way central banks have repatriated their gold. I think people need to have gold closer to home. You know, where if you feel safe enough to have a small amount in your home, that's great. Some people don't, and then you keep it in a safety deposit box as close to you as possible, or a vault as close to you as possible. You know, and but I do think that coins, I was always fascinated in numismatics and in the history of coinage, and I think coins are very, very important, you know, and that's why they called it Bitcoin, and that's why they call these things coins, you know, because they know how important they are, and they've been important throughout history. So I think the visibility, smaller amounts, that's why people love the 1 ounce silver. It's a lovely size, you know. So what I did was, there's a niche there, as I said, there's 33 million Irish Americans, and then there's a huge amount of Celtic people, Scottish, Welsh descendants in Irish America, but also in Australia and Canada, you know. So this is a niche now for people. For the first time, they can actually buy Irish and Celtic bullion coins. That's 4.9 pure. And yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. They have the sacred symbols of Ireland. So that's what's called on crown Baha, which is the tree of life. And that's a sacred symbol in nearly every tradition, every spiritual tradition around the world. And we put the heart at it because the heart is important. It's the heart of everything, you know. And there's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of mythology. There's a lot of consciousness actually in the symbols that are on the coins, you know. So they really capture I suppose, the essence of what Ireland is, the people of Ireland are, and they honor our ancestors and basically celebrate, because we're a nation that went through, we were targeted in quite a big way between naughty Vikings and naughty Normans and then naughty English elites. They came in and they ransacked the place. You know, this was a very abundant place. We had a huge amount of gold and silver in this country. The goddess breed and the saint breed, she was actually known as a goddess of the sun and of fire, but she was also known to be a metalsmith. So she was known to be working metals, and they use metals basically in the day-to-day living. You know, they had amazing chalices and cups because they have medical properties, particularly silver. It's antibacterial, antimicrobial. So they would drink their water, they would drink their mead, they would drink in celebration from the chalices. And the only people who do that today are the Catholic Church, you know. It's interesting. So a lot of the gold and silver went into the Vatican. So we need to take it back. It's in Ireland, we had these amazing, amazing works of art. I'll show you. This is an amazing book. It's the Treasures of Early Irish Art from 1500 BC to 1500 AD. So 3,500 years ago, our ancestors were making these amazing, amazing works of art in both gold and silver, you know. And that's what gold and silver are. They're not just, they're money. They're not just money, though. They are, gold is actually the metal of the sun. And we used to think that was metaphorically, but it's actually literally, some people believe it's either come from asteroids or it's come from bursts of sun and solar flares. And then silver is the metal of the moon. So silver is the masculine energy because the masculine energy is giving and radiating, and then the feminine energy, whether it be the moon and the earth, which are closely connected, the earth receives the energy of the sun, you know. So they're very complementary, and that's why, and they're very grounding as well. And in every spiritual tradition, there's huge respect and reverence in Christianity, in Buddhism, in Islam, in all the great religious traditions and spiritual traditions. They value gold and silver, you know, because they know that they are metals that are connected to the energy of the universe or the energy of God. So we should treat them with respect and with reverence. And you know, there's nothing wrong with buying big gold bars and putting them in vaults in Switzerland or whatever. But I think it's important in the world of today that people actually, you know, truly value what these things are, you know, because It's funny. One last thing to let you go. I think people. I had people. I met a woman the other day, and she said, "Oh, but it's so gold is so expensive, you know." And this is what I hear all the time. It's expensive, you know, because they don't know its relative value. But I said to her, it's expensive relative to what? How much has the price of bread gone up that you buy, and where do you buy your bread? She says, "Oh, I buy my bread here, and that's actually gone up from 2.50 to €5." So I said, "Well, there you go. The price of bread that you buy has gone up 100%, you know." So we have to think of it. I think we'll have it in a podcast another day, David. We'll look at the relative values of this of Irish
Right.
bread.
Right.
I'm getting hungry. I'm getting hungry just looking at it. But
Okay.
in Ireland, this is our gold here. This is a gold
Kerrygold. Oh
bar.
boy, I'm familiar with that one.
That's Irish butter, yeah, the best of
Yeah.
Irish butter, big gold bar. So the price of all these things is going up, and the ratio of gold. It's interesting that you could buy throughout history, you'd buy roughly 400 loaves of bread with 1 ounce of gold, and I'm sure it's probably a similar ratio with silver, except 1/10 or 1/15. You know,
Right.
I don't know if there's any research or any writing on that. So this is these. It's an inflation hedge, and it's a form of money, and it will protect people. And so, yeah, have a look at taracoins.com. That's where you'll find us. We have distributors. The biggest distributor, and it's going really well for them. And I have a great partnership with Money Metals Exchange. They're really good guys up in Idaho. You know, Stefan Gleason.
Yep.
He's a lovely guy, lovely company. They have the biggest vaults in America now, I believe, outside of Fort Knox. So they're selling the silver trees and the gold trees, and it's going really well with them. You know, they've done a bit of marketing, and just with a little bit of marketing, they're selling really well with them. You know, so but we've distributors in the UK. We're putting by post in Ireland with the dealers, here in Ireland, and in many countries around the world. You know, so yeah, don't be buying coins with King Charles on them. Buy sovereign, truly sovereign coins. Not that I've anything against King Charles. Good luck to him. You know, he
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be. He's not the worst of them. There's definitely worse in this world than King Charles. But yeah, it's funny the legal tender. That's one last thing to say. Sorry, one last thing is, why do we need a legal tender value on a bullion coin? And what's interesting is people are beginning to buy what's called gold rounds and silver rounds. These things, they're beginning to buy these because they're looking for the intrinsic value. They don't need a government or a central bank to put a stamp of $1 or $5 or $10. It doesn't have to be a legal tender value. It's the intrinsic value. So these have actually become more. There used to be a big difference. The rounds would be much cheaper than the legal tender coins. But what's interesting is now there's less of a difference in the price, and people are beginning to say gold is gold, and these my coins are commanding similar premiums, and the round trip cost between the buy and the sell, the bid offer spread is not as high as it used to be on the rounds, you know. So it is interesting, and I think that's a phenomenon that's going to continue because I think people want. But sometimes there are tax advantages to the bullion coins in certain jurisdictions, you know. So that's one reason you might buy the coins. But for people who want bullion in their hand and they want something truly beautiful, truly sacred, make beautiful gifts as well. We should be buying these things rather than buying jewelry that has crazy markups and sales taxes. These are absolutely beautiful gifts. And one last thing, yeah, we've done fractional gold. So to make it accessible, obviously the 1 ounce silver, we've the 1 ounce gold. But I long said that the currency is going to be devalued. And when gold goes to 10,000 in the next few years, I've no doubt gold will go to 10,000 euro, dollar, pound, and they'll probably fix all the fiat currencies and we'll have 10,000. And it could be in 5 years, it could be in 10 years, but it will happen. When that happens, your fractional gold of zero point 0.1 ounce and 1 gram will become much, much more important. So I think people need to be looking at the smaller, and if you've got, like a lot of your people would already own gold and silver coins and they don't want to buy more, but maybe do a little swap. Say, right, well, I'll swap 3 of my 1 ounce gold coins and with that, you get 91 gram little gold coins. They're beautiful. I won't show you. They're there on the table somewhere. So you get 91 gram coins for your 3 1 ounces. And it's nice in the world today to have that little bit of visibility, because then you can go to your local farmer, your local butcher, your local candlestick maker, and you can buy buy the necessities of life, but you won't be able to buy it with a one ounce gold. 1 ounce gold is for buying property and land and businesses and paying off debts and things like that, And I think we need to see it more and more as a form of money rather than as a form of a lump sum investment where we see to make a return, So that's it, David. Yeah. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And keep up the great work.